Hello, gentle marketers. Welcome to episode 33 of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, the show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness. I'm Sarah Zenacroce, I'm the host on this show, and you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who is looking for a better way to market your business. Or you are an entrepreneur who is simply tired and sick of the traditional marketing model, the loud and hypey kind, and are ready for a paradigm shift. You might also be a marketing impact pioneer, so someone working for an organization who does business for good. Today's a regular episode, and it falls under the P of partnerships of the Gentle Marketing Mandala. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download your one-page marketing plan that comes with 7 days of email prompts to fill out your 7 Ps at sarahzenacroce.com/one page, the number 1 page. Before we dive in, quick reminder about the bonus program of my Gentle Marketing program. Gentle Marketing is a hybrid between self-development and very pragmatic marketing know-how based on what works. And starting May 1st, I'm hosting a semi-live 8-week program, which means that you get access to the whole course material, video training plus assignment workbooks in my beautiful new customer hub on Kajabi. You also get access to our private community Trello group where you can connect with other participants and ask all your questions. It's like a Facebook group, but better because it's exclusive for our group and we don't get distracted by bad and fake news that are making us so anxious on Facebook. In addition, and just for this special round, you get access to my new mini course on authentic and fair pricing, a workshop in which you discover the secrets to clients you love and a business that brings you joy every day, my passive income planner in order to help you think about and plan some additional income sources. And we also get to hang out together for 3 live workshops with me and the other group members. The first one of these workshops is on kickoff May 1st about income generating ideas for the coming weeks. The second one 4 weeks into the program on May 28th about improving your LinkedIn profile and marketing. And the third one at the end of the 8 weeks on June 25th to wrap up and answer questions and define your next steps. So the program starts next week on May 1st, 2020. If you sign up now, you get a head start and you can already access the course material, but our first call together happens on May 1st. If your intuition calls you to join us, please have a look at all the details and sign up at thegentlemarketingrevolution.com. If you click through to the shopping cart, you'll notice that there's also a payment plan option that I've added recently given the current situation. I'd love to have you. Okay, back to today's episode. So Tara McMullen is well known in this online space for doing things differently, for doing it her way. And that's why I wanted to bring her on and talk to us about her shift to a community-based business model back in 2016. Tara McMullin is a podcaster, writer, and small business community leader. With over a decade of experience helping thousands of small business owners grow their businesses, she's on a mission to change the dialogue from hype to candid conversations about what's really working in business. She's the host of the What Works podcast, a top small business podcast that's been recommended by Forbes and Entrepreneur, as well as the founder of the What Works Network, a community hub for small business owners. She's also the co-founder of YellowHouse.Media, a podcast production agency and consultancy. This episode is all about questioning assumptions, moving away from the cookie-cutter approach and towards an empowerment of the community to be self-reliant and find solutions that work for them. I admire Tara's work and find a lot of inspiration in her courage to do things differently. I hope you will enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed recording this episode. So without further ado, here's Tara McMullen. Hi, Tara. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm good too. I kind of almost stumbled when I read your name because I'm so used to Tara Gentile.
Yep.
And ever since, we last talked, I had you on my podcast and just looked it up. It was episode 3. So
Oh my
quite a
goodness.
while ago. And back then you weren't married yet. So now you've changed your name.
Yep.
So good to have you back. I first attended actually one of your programs. It was called Connect to Sell. I believe it was back in 2016. And back then, you kind of had this traditional online business with a training program based on your framework. I would love for you to kind of share with the audience how you have since then changed your business model and what's different, compared to back then.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to start because 2016 was a really pivotal, literally, year for me. It was a year where I really started to feel out of alignment with what I wanted from my business and what I had built. And just sort of through the natural ways that things end up progressing, and you don't really notice little bit by little bit how something's getting further and further away from what you thought you were doing or what you thought you wanted from your business. And then all of a sudden, maybe you wake up one day and you realize, oh, things are actually really different from how I intended them to be or how I expected them to be. And I think that we have those wake up moments in all sorts of areas of our lives,
Mm.
whether it's with our health or it's with our relationships and certainly with our businesses as well. And so 2016 was a year where I had a couple of those reckonings, but definitely in my business. And so like you said, at the beginning of 2016, I was running a very familiar kind of information marketing online business. I had a couple of coaching programs that I was selling, the main one being a program called Quiet Power Strategy that a lot of people knew me for and often still know me for.
Mhm.
And that was a group business coaching program. We'd always put an emphasis on kind of peer-to-peer support and masterminding and kind of hands-on coaching. And it was never meant to be sort of a DIY kind of course. We never said we're going to teach you everything you need to know to run an online business. It was very much a process of experimentation and work and applying yourself and talking with other people and really just trying to better understand your own business. But what had happened because it was sort of the default in the market at that time and largely still is that people assumed it was a course that was going to tell you how to run your business and it was going to tell you how to, double your revenue or triple your
Mhm.
revenue, and that there was going to be a set of prescribed ideas for you to follow. And that within that framework, then I was an expert who could answer all of your questions on that prescribed framework. I'm not trying to pass off the blame on how that ended up being what people expected at all. I mean, like I said, I think that was the default in the market. I think largely it still is the default in the market.
You're right.
But also, I wasn't doing enough to explain how what we were trying to do was different. And because I wasn't doing enough to explain that difference, the program did literally start to become more prescriptive. I was more in the expert seat than I was in the coach seat or in the facilitator or question asker seat. And because of that, things started to feel full of friction early that year. And so by March, April of that year, I started to think through how could I start delivering this program differently? How could I make it more clear what we're trying to accomplish here, why this program is different, why people are going to engage with it differently? And we did try a couple of different things throughout that year to maintain that body of work, to maintain something that we felt really strongly about, that we were excited about still, but just to deliver it in a way that was more, that pointed out that difference more often, that was more human, that was more personal, that was more based on affirming the experiences and agency of the people who are going through the program. But we never could really land on something that felt right. And by the end of that year, I decided I needed to make a much bigger change, that it couldn't just be reworking something that people were already familiar with. It needed to be, no, we're doing something different, because what we believe, what we stand for, what we want to see happen in the market, the way we want to support business owners is different than the default in the market. It's different than the way most other people are creating value and putting things out into the marketplace. And so at the end of 2016, I made the decision to retire all of the programs that we had developed over the previous 7 years. And instead, to create a community-based peer-to-peer support offer that would allow business owners to really focus on what was going to work for them by talking it out with other people who could bring their experience and their what works to the table. And so that's when in then January 2017, we really started to reconfigure and relaunch the business around this community-based model. And that is what leads us to where we are today.
That's amazing. What comes up for me, and I think I lost track of counting how many times, but the word different came up several times.
Yeah.
And it's like such a big word for me as well. And with different also comes, at least for me, and I want to hear how it felt for you, but I remember sitting on my therapist's chair, and that's in my Gentle Business Manifesto, and I told her it is so effing hard to be different. and in a way, it is hard because you then have to be the first one to offer something completely different, right?
Yes.
So how did 2016 feel for you before you obviously made a bold change and said, okay, this is what we're going to do, but it took you some time to get there. How did that feel?
Oh, that is such a good question. 2016 felt really frustrating.
Yeah.
But it also felt profoundly exciting. Like even before we decided to make a complete and total change in how we were going to offer what we were offering, even each small change that we made to the program and the delivery mechanisms and the business model felt really exciting. So even though there was this really strong underlying feeling of frustration and like, why can't I figure this out? Why can't they figure this out? Why can't this just work out? How did we get here? There was also this profound sense of possibility and a feeling of excitement that no, it's okay. And it's okay to be frustrated. We're going to figure something out here that's going to be really, really special. And it's going to help people. And I think that even in the midst of even in the midst of complete uncertainty about where we were going, I felt like I was getting closer and closer to what I had all along ultimately wanted to be building. And so even looking forward into 2017, that feeling of frustration continued. And, and a lot of times, even today, I still feel very frustrated sometimes because just like you said, doing something that is different can be really, really hard. And it puts such a huge burden on you as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, as a content creator, as an idea person, as a leader. And with that comes real legitimate challenges. And at the same time, that frustration has always been balanced by the possibility and potential and excitement that comes along at the same time with doing something that's different. And so a lot of the personal work that I've had to do over the last few years is learning to live in that balance and allowing for the frustration and allowing for, things not going my way and not going the way I think they should or the way I want them to, and still at the same, like leaning into and recognizing that that frustration exists because I'm pushing into a place that is very exciting and full of potential and possibility. And that's been a difficult personal lesson, but it's also been a really fulfilling personal lesson or exercise.
I'm so glad to hear, because I feel like I'm following your footsteps about, 3 years later, and it's still hard because other than you, I mean, there's a few examples out there, but still it's not the norm, right? And the other word that came up for me when you were talking, other than different, is the word empowerment. It really feels to me like what you wanted to do is not make your clients dependent on your cookie cutter system, but really empower them, give power back to them. Is that about true?
Yeah, that is 100% true. Yeah, we like to say that one of our top values is really affirming the agency of every single business owner that we come across. In other words, it is not up to us to make decisions for you or to tell you what to do, because we believe in the power and ability and experience of every business owner to make their own best decisions.
Right.
And with that then comes this incredible learning, because we don't always make the right decisions. Even though we believe in business owners to make the right decisions, I know they don't always make the right decisions because I don't always make the right decisions. But given support and given access to conversations about what's really going on in businesses today, given access to better information, given access to better data, we can all start to make better and better and better decisions. And each one of those decisions will be right in its own way, in its own time, to allow us to move forward. And so, yes, empowerment is a huge piece of that. And not sort of the pop culture empowerment, but truly like recognizing the existing power of individual people, of people who choose this path. I don't think you can choose the path of entrepreneurship and small business ownership if you don't already have some even tenuous connection to your own personal power. And our goal is, in many ways, to make that connection to your personal power stronger and stronger and stronger, because it's already there. Like, you don't need me to empower you. You might need help tapping into that existing power. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think that brings up the inner work. And it feels to me that you have gone through some deep inner work as well to maybe figure out your own inner power and really figuring out, well, this is what I'm good at, so this is what I'm going to help other people become good at. And I feel like also you maybe have kind of questioned some of the mainstream assumptions that everybody makes, and then come up with your own definitions. For example, one of the assumptions that we always or one of the things that we're always fed as entrepreneurs is, what is a successful business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of fed this idea that a 6 to 7 figure business, that's when you're successful, right? Already that line makes me laugh. And but it's actually not laughable, because what it does in so many marketing campaigns use that line, that 6, 7 figure business, is that it creates so much anxiety and it disempowers actually a lot of entrepreneurs. So what do you think about these assumptions, and how do you help your clients question their assumptions?
Yeah. Man, questioning assumptions is a huge part of what I am passionate about. And it's something that I've always been passionate about. But I think that in just, like you recognized, and just even in the last few years, it's been something that I have really worked to internalize in myself in a new way, and therefore has become internalized in my work and in what I create in a new way. And so, yeah, questioning assumptions is a huge part of what we do. I think the main way we do that is by welcoming a diversity of perspective. When you are looking at it's my way or the highway, or a one size fits all kind of framework, for building a business, there can be no diversity of perspective, right? Because that's built into the model. There is one way to do this. There's a right way, and then every other way is a wrong way. And I am being reductive about that, and I'm not saying that even a majority of people who are marketing programs like that are thinking that way or are like actually dogmatic in that way, because I don't think that's true. But just because that's not how people think about it, or just because that philosophy isn't actually built into it, doesn't mean that that's not the consequence of that kind of solution. And so our goal is to create something where the consequence, in a good way, of what we're doing and how we're supporting people is that they are questioning the assumptions that they make, and they're questioning the biases that they have, and they're questioning the methods of operating that they've always done,
Mm-hmm.
And so to do that, my goal is to bring together as many different types of businesses as possible, to bring together people from as many different backgrounds as possible, to bring together people who are doing things as differently as possible. And we do that in a bunch of different ways. So it's not just, oh, isn't this nice? Or like, this isn't just like my philosophy or my values. Like, it's actually operationalized in our business as well. And in everything from our free levels of content and marketing that people can access at any given time for absolutely zero investment, all the way up to our highest mastermind kind of offers. So for instance, with our podcast, the way we do this is by literally looking for different ways that people are doing the same thing. So, next month or in January, and this is just, we're recording in December. So next month is January 2020. For me now here in the present, we are featuring 4 different stories of how business owners manage their projects within their businesses. And in each of those interviews, there are very different systems that people are talking about. One person's really talking about it from a perspective of managing the creative process and what that has to look like for her as a coach, what that needs to look like for her clients as writers. Another person is talking about it from a very systematized, very kind of nitty-gritty, task-oriented perspective, because she's managing multi-level projects because she does PR. And not only are the projects multi-level, but they're also owned by different people. Different parts of those projects are owned by different people. And so her way of managing those projects is very, very different than the other woman's way of managing those projects. But both of those ways are good and they work for both of those businesses, and there's something to be learned from both of those things. And so with the podcast, we're really trying to examine, okay, let's talk project managing, let's talk leadership, let's talk building a brand, let's talk scaling your business. What are all the different ways that can look like? What are all the unexpected ways that we can talk about this one topic or this one result that we say we're all trying to get or work through? And in presenting those different perspectives, how can that help us ask better questions of how we discover what works for us? So that's what we do on the podcast. It's the same thing inside of our membership community, which is called the What Works Network, where it is an open platform where we've really tried to flatten the hierarchy that often exists in small business communities, where, like you said, the people who are making 6 and 7 figures, they're the ones that are right. They're the ones that are experts. They're the ones that only have something to contribute. And we're really trying to say, no, everyone who is here has something to contribute. Everyone who is here, who is doing the work, who is running their business, has learned something that can benefit everyone else in this community. And so our goal is to really create a culture of contribution for our members, where they're not just showing up to learn, but they're also showing up to give and to contribute their experiences. And by doing that, then we get as many different diverse perspectives as possible on what works for different kinds of businesses. And then the same is very true in our masterminds as well, where we're gathering small groups of people to do the same thing. So
I love that.
really,
I think
yeah,
what comes up for me is this principle. I think it's by this concept that's called the circle way, where they say a leader in each chair, right? It's like
mhm,
really this idea of no matter where you come from, we value your expertise. And, obviously you're in this, maybe for me, it's my marketing program, the Gentle Marketing Revolution program. Obviously, you're here because maybe marketing is where you're still learning, but you bring so much other expertise
right.
to this group that we're not just going to shut you up and say, no, 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 you just, watch and listen. No, we want you to actually contribute because you have so much other expertise that you bring to the table. And sounds like that's exactly what you're doing as well.
Yes, exactly what we're doing.
And so how does that translate to you showing up differently as the leader? Like, how do you talked about kind of what you're doing differently? How are you being differently
Mhm.
as the leader?
Good question. I am being so differently than I
Mm,
used to. So we don't just we don't just talk about the culture of contribution and the culture of, everyone has something to bring to the table. We have actual policies and ways of showing up in our community that are, they're written down, they're operationalized, they're built into the structure of what we do. And I am also bound by those policies. And those policies, I guess, really come from me better understanding how it serves the community for me to show up, for me to be. So one of those things is that we have a no guru policy in our
I love
community.
that.
Right. And so that speaks directly to my role. Yes, it also speaks to our members as well. But the goal there is for us to short circuit how people expect me to show up in our community, because I refuse to show up that way. I refuse to be the one that says, no, do this, don't do that, do this other thing. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. This is the right way. Don't do, this is the wrong way. And instead, my goal is to show up and share from my own experience. So the sort of the extension of the no guru policy is that we in our community, we don't give advice. We share from our experience or share from our observation. And so I do the exact same thing. I don't make pronouncements about what you should do or what you shouldn't do. I say, in my experience, this is what's worked for me. In my experience, this is what's worked for my clients. In my experience, or in my observation, this is what I see happening in the market right now. But I really try to avoid putting myself in the position of being the one who is the kind of arbiter of what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, what you should and what you shouldn't do. And that means I get to show up as a more whole person, a more authentic version of who I really am, because I don't know what you should and shouldn't be doing with your business. And to claim that I do is a tactic of manipulation and exploitation, and it is shortchanging the full expression of who I am. And
Mm.
when I show up with honesty and transparency and simply say, here's how I did it, or here's how I happen to have an inside look at how so-and-so's business works. Here's how they did it. That's a very different statement. And it allows me to be much more in integrity with what I know to be true, who I am, and how I want to show up. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, so much. And I think what you said, this showing up as whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically the way I'm talking about myself, the way I've showed up for the last 12 years is wearing this mask and trying to fit in and being this person that I thought I was expected to be, because that's what I saw. I saw the gurus out there, right?
Yep.
I'm like, oh, I'm trying my best to be a guru, and it just didn't feel right. And the minute I decided I'm gonna, drop this mask, be myself. First of all, spend some time figuring out who I really am, what my values are, my worldview, going back to my origins and all of that. Now I show up and it's like, oh my God, I can actually show up. Like I showed up in my stupid looking poncho with you. And I'm like, I don't care because that's me, right? And isn't that such a great feeling when you can do that as well with your clients? Because yeah, you just bring your full self to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things this year that I have been really digging into, and I know it's almost kind of cliche, I think, at least in the Instagram world, but I think in like the larger self-help world right now too. But so one of the things I've really been digging into this year is the Enneagram. And I recently discovered that I am an Enneagram 3. Well, recently as in like, it's been almost a year now. I had been mistyped as a type 5 for a long time because I'm fairly like logical and I don't really like to let my feelings in on things. And, I like the facts. I like the information and, that's how I kind of operate. And so I'd been mistyped as a 5 for quite a while, but it turns out I'm a 3 and I am such a 3. Like I'm so hardcore 3. And what a 3 is the achiever.
Mm-hmm.
And we are incredibly goal-oriented, achievement-oriented, and we base our value, our worth as a human being on the things that we do and achieve. Not that that's healthy, but that's that's like our psychological coping mechanism, right? And so one of the things that I discovered learning more about myself as a type 3 is that I will put on a mask in order to get people to recognize me as worthy, as valuable. And that mask, while it can be helpful in social situations, it can be helpful in marketing, it also can very easily lead to manipulation when I know what people want from me. I know how I need to show up to get them to give me money or, buy this program or work with me in this way. I know what that feels like. I know what that looks like. I know how to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I choose to be that person instead of who I actually am, I'm getting further and further away from the truth. I'm getting further and further away from honesty. I'm getting further and further away from just what feels comfortable on a daily basis. And so then I create this reality in which I have to be someone I'm not all the time. And that is exhausting. And so that was a huge part, in hindsight of what was going on in 2016 was that I had gotten to this place where I had to be a certain person all the time.
Mm-hmm.
To get people to recognize me for who they wanted me to be and who I wanted them to think that I was. And I couldn't keep that up anymore. It was too exhausting. And so over the course of the last few years, as we've reconfigured the business, as I've learned more about who I am, as I've figured out how I want to show up, I've gotten more and more to a place where who shows up is actually me. And that's a lot less exhausting. It's a lot more comfortable and it's more fun. So even when the business can still be frustrating, even when I look at my plans and I'm like, well, I know what would make this sell a lot faster, or I know what would make this offer a lot more enticing to people. I can also say, but that's not who I am, and that's not what I do, and that's not how I want to show up, and I can choose not to do those things.
Yeah, you go back to your values and say, okay, how does this really align with who I am?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had the Enneagram in front of me, the results. I'm pretty sure I'm a 3, but I'm more into human design. And so I definitely know that I'm also one who's projected upon. So yes, definitely. Everybody thinks I am this perfect person who has it all together. And man, the pressure that comes with, right?
Yes.
It's even more so when you want to show up and say, no, actually, I don't have it all together. I'm going to do things completely differently from now on. And I'm just launching this thing and no idea what I'm doing, but hey, come along. So, but yeah, it feels so refreshing and just like, yeah, like I've come full circle, and it sounds like that's what's been going on for you. So I'm so happy for you. And I have to tell you, I hear such good things about your program, your membership. So you must be doing a really good job there.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I want to bring up one last topic,
Sure.
that's the shoulds, because I think when we
Yes.
talk assumptions, there's always the shoulds, right? And so I think what I also want to show people is that there really is no shoulds. Like, you should be get rid of the shoulds. You should get rid of the shoulds. That's funny. Um, so how do you deal with your clients when it comes to the marketing shoulds? Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the shoulds is that there's always truth there, right? The things that we think we should be doing, there's a reason that those shoulds have bubbled up to the surface. There's a reason that everyone thinks they should be sending a weekly email marketing message. There's a reason people think they should be on all of the social media platforms. There's a reason that they think they should have this beautiful, expensively designed website, right? There's a reason for all of those things. But that reason doesn't necessarily make it true. So I think that when it comes to re-examining our shoulds, the answer can't be that just because we think we should do something, that we don't have to do it or that we shouldn't do it, right? It's not that the opposite is necessarily true. I think that should is a word that should trigger, or maybe we'll start using must. Should is a word that must trigger, because I feel pretty confident about this. Should is a word that must trigger a process of examination. So anytime you hear yourself say should, it's an opportunity to say, why do I think this? Right? So I just released a conversation on my podcast with Tonya, Dalton, who is the founder of Inkwell Press, but more recently, she's also the author of a book called The Joy of Missing Out. And the conversation that we had for this podcast episode was about the stories that we tell ourselves about what makes us good enough, what makes us worthy. What does a good business owner do? What does a good mom do? What does a good wife do? What does a good husband do? And we have all these stories about what we should be doing, baked into these ideas of what we think we want, or what maybe we actually want. But we need to take responsibility for recognizing those stories and then examining those stories. So just because you have a should around email marketing or social media or doing webinars or sending sales pitches or whatever it might be, it doesn't mean those things are things you don't have to do or things you shouldn't be doing. It doesn't mean do the opposite, but it does mean this is an opportunity to really examine what is going on here. What do I think what is real? What's not real? What's true? What's not true? Is what's true going to help me move forward toward my goals? Or is what's true something that doesn't actually apply to me? Or is what's true an opportunity to experiment? Maybe that is true, and maybe I want to see if it works for me. Maybe I want to see if this applies in my business or not. I can experiment with that instead of telling myself a story that's very black and white or shaming myself around those shoulds. I can simply use it as a trigger for curiosity and examination.
I love that. Yeah. So true. I think what we also work on is this idea of boundaries, because I think the shoulds often then lead to overwhelm, and then maybe people not doing anything because they're just so overwhelmed. So I feel like if we do this inner work, first of all, to figure out who we are, what our values are, maybe our Enneagram and our human design, and then finding out our superpowers. Maybe we have this should of, we should have a YouTube channel. But if we find out that actually our superpower is more writing, then we immediately can say, well, I probably should not do a YouTube channel. because my superpower is writing. So it feels like having this knowledge about yourself and then having this idea of setting clear boundaries for your energy, that will really help. So it feels like it always comes back to, starting with yourself and really figuring out what you want and who you are, what you want, what your definition of success is. All these questions that always come back to who you are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
This has been so beautiful. Thank you so much, Tara. Please tell us how and where people can find you.
Yeah. So a couple of places to find me. One is wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can also find my podcast that's called What Works. And our goal there is to transcend the hype around small business and really shed a light on what's actually working to run and grow small businesses today. You can also find that podcast along with everything else that we're doing at explorewhatworks.com. And if you just want to connect with me personally, the best place to do that is on Instagram. So I'm at Tara_McMullen there. And I post micro essays a couple of times a week, in addition to just sharing kind of what's going on behind the scenes on my Instagram stories.
Wonderful. Thanks so much again for coming back here. I really appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me, Sarah. It's been really fun.
Thank you so much for listening. Please check out the show notes for all the links for this episode at sarahsandacroce.com/GBR33. If you have any questions regarding this, the Gentle Business Circle would be a great opportunity to ask these or any other questions. Again, the circle is a community of supporters of this podcast with a monthly live Q&A call and a safe zone to hang out with like-minded conscious entrepreneurs. Check out the details at sarahsandacroce.com/circle. I hope you'll join me on this journey to a kinder marketing paradigm. Please invite your friends to join us as well by sharing this podcast or the Gentle Business Manifesto with them. Both can be found at thegentlebusinessrevolution.com. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. Thanks for listening.